everybody, and welcome to Crucible. On today's podcast, we're going to talk about how to regain power over your life, the importance and impact of the choices we make, and how it's never too late to save yourself. We all face challenges, crucibles in life that make us or break us. What matters is how we respond to such roadblocks. That's really what defines us. Through inspirational stories from all walks of life, this podcast will provide you with techniques to overcome and grow from life's most challenging experiences. Hello, everybody. This is Mary Lee Aitenhan coming to you live from my Diva Den Studios in Brentwood, Tennessee for my podcast, Crucible. For this week's episode, I will be interviewing Beth Brower. And Beth Brower is a dear friend of mine, has been for many, many, many years. She graduated high school from the CSS Colorado Springs High School. It's a private boarding school. She has her degree in special and elementary ed from Druid College in Missouri. And she taught at A&M for 20 years and received the Educator of the Year, Special Ed Educator of the Year in 1989. Today is the anniversary of her meeting Matt O'Brien, who wrote Dark Days and Bright Nights. This is her 12th year of being sober. She's an avid Broncos fan and Golden Knights hockey, and she's involved with the Shine a Light Ministries and many, many, many more. So our episode today is entitled Out of the Tunnels and Into the Light. So there you go, Beth. You want to give a little more backstory of how we know each other?
Yeah. First of all, my name is Beth and Brower, and I'm definitely an alcoholic and an addict. And I've known Mary Lee almost my entire life. We grew up in the same town. I moved there when I was in 5th grade. And I always admired her and watched her become real involved with her church, and I kind of took a different path, and then we reunited after I got sober. It was quite a lifespan there, and we were really good friends, and she stood by me all the way through high school. And I even kind of find it ironic that I did the punch bowl that I didn't spike at her wedding. And so I was a part of her wedding, and then we just kind of grew apart after that. I chose to do a lot of different things, and then we reunited. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been a great time ever since we have reunited. I think I went off and went to the university, got married. You were in the wedding and then had babies, and then you know how that goes. It's just like my life just exploded, and I was trying to focus on having, trying to have a successful teaching career. So, yeah, I'm so glad that we got reunited. I wanted to read you a quote from the book, and then I'm going to just let you start wherever you want. But this is actually from Matt's second book. And he says, it says, are you aware that hundreds of people live underground in the flood channels of Las Vegas? Few people were until Matthew O'Brien grabbed a flashlight, tape recorder, and expandable baton for protection and explored the storm drain system in depth. This research resulted in his landmark book, Beneath the Neon, his second book, right? Now the drains have been covered by CNN, Fox News, NPR, Dr. Phil, New York Times, BBC, Al Jazeera, et cetera, and including episodes for CSI and Criminal Minds. But here's the most important paragraph. But the fact that several of those drug and gambling addicted tunnel dwellers have clawed their way out of the drains and turned around their lives has received far less attention. And you're one of those people, Beth. And that just breaks my heart. But I'm just so thankful. So thankful for you.
Thank you, Mary Lee. My story begins and it's been I got loaded and was introduced to weed and alcohol at age 11. My mom and dad there was 3 of us in our family, and I had twin brothers. I had one brother that had a learning disability and one brother who was just always in line, no problems whatsoever. And then there was me, and I came out of the womb different. I came out having a lot of food allergies, and I would get in trouble at school. Mom and Dad were getting phone calls when I was in kindergarten because I was hitting people, and a lot of that stemmed from the fact that I just didn't fit in. I was never comfortable in my own skin. And I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I think it started with the allergies and also some separation anxiety. I know that from a lot of outside therapy. I used to have to go to school with things made out of buckwheat flour, made out of potato flour, made out of all that good stuff for us now, right?
Right. Back then, nobody knew a thing about it.
No, they didn't. And not only did they not know anything about it, but I got teased a lot about it. And when I was 4, before I was even in school, I was kind of backtracking a little bit. My mom was taking me to Cheyenne to the allergy doctor and was in a head-on collision. And that wreck, my father, bless his heart, he was county attorney and got a phone call, and we lived in Kimball. We hadn't moved to Scottsbluff yet, and he got a phone call that there had been a fatality wreck, and he came out to find our Rambler and all messed up, and they'd already taken my mom and myself to Cheyenne to the hospital. And my dad intercepted me somehow. I don't recall any of that at all, but he intercepted me and took me back to Kimball. And then the next day took me over, and they covered, my mom was pretty well mangled, and they covered most of everything up and let me see my mom to try to prevent any of that kind of future effect having on me, but it just didn't work. And so going away and putting in and sending people away was the solution back then. I had a brother who had a very big learning disability in school, and so there wasn't a whole lot of special education in Western Nebraska, so they sent him to school in Denver for a year to live with an aunt and an uncle. So that was my first experience. It was always going away. There was always an absence, and so I started rebelling and started doing all sorts of things, and I went to all extremes. I went from smoking weed and drinking just a little bit when I was like in 6th grade. It's the first time, and then my parents had a cousin whose kid was real involved in a religious cult, and so I, at that time, I don't know, you're ready when you're ready, you find God when you find God. And I was playing around with that a lot. And Mary Lee was a big part of that. Her faith was huge, and huge, always. And I used to get punished a lot for going to Bible studies across the street and coming home like 2 minutes late, or, there was a lot of things that went on, and it scared my parents because they had this cousin that was in a cult, and I was going to all these meetings and they were coming home all the time, and I was wanting to go out and get baptized and do all this stuff, and they just weren't having it. So my junior and senior year of high school, they shipped me off to a private school in Colorado Springs. It was a girls' school. It was a boarding school. We did have 3 guys in our class. We were the first class that graduated with any guys in it. Mm-hmm. And boy, did I learn how to party there, man. Because I had all these, we had a lot of girls whose parents were in the oil field overseas, and they're bringing out back cash and all sorts of stuff in their suitcases. And I got introduced to some drugs, and then, went to college and graduated, and it accelerated. And here's the deal. They say the insanity of alcoholics or addicts is and doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Well, that's not what it is for me, man. It's doing the same thing over and over again, knowing exactly what's going to happen and doing it anyway. And I am a queen of building it up really good and then tearing the rug out from underneath me, and tearing it down. So, some of my buildups were I went to Texas straight out of college, already smoking weed on a daily basis, messing around with things called Quaaludes back then, doing a lot of different stuff. I'd done a lot of mescaline. I'd done a lot of acid in college. I guess kind of one of the kind of cool things is that now that I'm sober, about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, I took myself to the Rolling Stones on a self date and saw them totally sober, and I hadn't seen them for 40 years. I saw them in 81,
awesome.
and boy, what a treat! What a treat it was. So anyway, so I'm have moved to College Station, which is the home of Texas Aggies. Whoop!
Yep.
And I'm living there, and I'm teaching in a little small town right outside of Texas A&M, which is called Caldwell. And I'm teaching elementary school and doing quite well, and teaching special ed because I build things up, right? That's what we do, and then we pull the rug out from underneath us by something stupid and start that whole cycle all over again. So I am in Texas, and I built it up to becoming special ed teacher of the year for the whole state. 5 years later, you might want to leave this state. I was in the classroom, and I couldn't tell the truth. I lied like a rug, and I was jeopardizing a bunch of different kids, and I had your special ed kid or your special ed kid in the classroom, and I was loaded, and they knew it. And while I was in Texas, I did, part of the buildup was I decided, I'm going to become a martial artist. All 4 foot 11 of me, and I did quite well with that. And I ran my own karate gym for many, many, many years down there. The beauty of that is God has provided all these kids that are now in their 30s and 40s. Everybody comes to Vegas, right? So they come to Vegas and they visit me and they see me, and I get the opportunity to say, hey, you didn't have the best part of me, and hey, I am so sorry for all the things I did, and how can I make it right? And almost all of them, and I bet I've done this with 30 kids, have all of them say, just hang out with us. And so it's been a lot of fun, been really cool.
That's
so So yeah, I had the mental health, playing I'm depressed, and then going to get the psych meds and in and out. I was in and out of rehab. They tried hard in Texas. I was in and out of rehab 5 or 6 times in Texas. And so what did I do? Just like I grew up seeing, I ran, man. So I ran to Vegas, and here was what the beauty was. Vegas was hopping, man. They were looking for teachers. They were growing so fast. They were the 3rd largest school district in the nation. And boy, I came running to Vegas. I ran. And I got here. It was great. They gave me a signing bonus. They gave me a moving access bonus. And here's the beauty of Las Vegas. You can mess up in this school, and I'll move you to that school. You can mess up in that school, they'll move you to the next school. You can mess up in that next school, they'll move you to the next school.
Right.
So I school hopped in this town, and alcoholism and addiction is a progressive disease. It's a progressive disease. It's something that I'm going to have the rest of my life. It won't go away. And there's certain things I have to do to keep myself from going back down that road. And so it's a real progressive disease. And so what happened was I eventually got the DUI, eventually had the car impounded. I eventually, and every time, bless my mom and dad's souls, they would fly to Vegas, they'd send me to rehab, They clean up whatever mess I left in my apartment. They'd hang out for a few days and they go back to their retirement. And they did this for almost 20 years out here. And, well, no, that's not, about 11 years. And so, what finally happened was I got caught in the last school classroom, my face down on the desk with 3 handicapped kids in the classroom. And I was done. They were done. And I thought I was done, right? So
Sure.
Mom and Dad flew to Vegas. I lost my job. I'm sitting in an apartment that's just totally a wreck. There's crap everywhere. There's holes burning everything. There, it smells like at this point as a combination of a meth lab and a lot of weed. And so my mom and dad say, "Won't you go?" And of course, I do what every good addict and alcoholic does. Sure, I'll go to rehab. Anything gets the heat off, right? So they take me to rehab, and I check into Monte Vista Hospital once again. It's rehab number 16.
Okay.
It's rehab number 16. And I've been doing this from 1982 to then, and for, longer than that. I've been on almost a 30-year venture at that point. And so I go into rehab, and I do what every good alcoholic and addict does. I get all that crud out of my system. About that third day, I got this. I'm out of here. Peace out. And they'll give you a cab one way anywhere. And I walked in on my own, so they'll let me leave on my own. Then several times I walked in there on a legal 72-hour hold, several times. And so I go home to no home. And I get out of that cab, and I find out I've been 86 from my own apartment. My mom and dad, in 3 days, in their 70s, have packed up my apartment. They have moved it to a storage unit somewhere in Vegas, and they have left. They are done. They are done. Now, I have $20 in my pocket. I have my little roller suitcase from rehab, and I'm on the streets of Las Vegas. I start walking, and I used that $20. You know what I did with that, for sure. First liquor store I could find.
Sure.
And
yeah.
And I end up in a park. It's about 2.5 miles from where I lived. And I am not quite sure. It was 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, not quite sure. But a few days later, I wake up and I am tied to a park bench. I am no clothing on from the waist up. And this guy comes to me and says, "Ma'am, you can't do this here." And he takes his shirt off his back and he gives it to me. And we start talking. He asks me if I want to get high, of course. And so we get high, and he says, "Hey, I know somewhere you can go and get out of the weather here. Come on." And so I had no idea. He could have killed me. He could have done anything, but he didn't. He walked me down to this ravine that's like a drain in Las Vegas. So in the 70s, a little background history of this, in the 70s, there was a couple big rainstorms here in Vegas, and so they decided to put in all these storm drains. So they put in over 450 miles of storm drains in Las Vegas, and about 250 to 300 miles of them are underground. And so he introduced me, took me down this ravine and introduced me to the tunnel of Las Vegas, this one tunnel. And so I started hanging out with them because I was getting free drugs. And they started asking me to do certain favors for those free drugs, and I complied without batting an eye. See, my alcohol and my drugs had made me be able to live in an animalistic life. It really was. And so I ran drugs out of the tunnels of Las Vegas. I dealt drugs out of there. Did all sorts of other sexual things to get money. And that's where I lived for the next 8.5 months. I'm the type of alcoholic and addict that will sit there with a lighter and flick it. And I understand the tunnels, couple things. The tunnels are pitch black.
Yeah.
The tunnels are never dry. My feet stayed wet for 8.5 months.
Oh, wow.
The tunnels, I was a kind of alcoholic, would sit there and turn my headlamp off because I knew that you were passed out there, and I'd sit there and I'd flick a lighter on the side of the tunnel, and I wouldn't be able to have any fluid in the lighter, just enough because I knew there was a crack there, and you had 2 lower tabs sitting in there. So I was going to find those lower tabs. I was going to steal them from you, and then you're going to wake up, and you're going to pull my fingernail off from stealing from you. And then I'm going to come back and do that a second time. And then I'm going to come back and do it a third time. And then I'm going to come back and you're going to start taking teeth. So I have 3 nails and 2 teeth that I lost in the tunnels. That's just part of the horror. You know, there's like different things that you, rules you live by, like walk on the right, pee and whatever on the left, you know. Rats and spiders on the left and in the middle, you know, those are kind of rules you do. And the thing is, you never mess with anybody's other belongings, and I couldn't do that. So I was a frequent flyer in 3 different tunnels in Las Vegas. I spent a lot of time in one that is over by the Hard Rock. I also spent a lot of time in one that was you would enter at what we call the Rio Hotel here in Vegas, and it went underneath the 15, which is the highway that goes all the way to either goes to LA or to Salt Lake City, depending which direction you're going. And that one comes clear, if you're familiar with Vegas, comes clear out by the MGM. It's a very long tunnel. And so what happened, unbeknownst to me, that God was just helping me reach my bottom. He was helping me realize how beautiful he was. So what happened was, occasionally there would be these people come down, and you always knew they weren't tunnel people that lived there because they had brighter flashlights, man. And it was either Metro Police Department or news reporters. And what happened was, this guy had written a book before I got in the tunnels. His name is Matthew O'Brien, and he was an editor for a magazine called City Life Magazine here in Las Vegas. And there was a guy that had murdered some people and had used the tunnels to escape. And Matt eventually convinced, when Mary Lee read part of the excerpt from there, convinced his co-worker to go down there with him. And they went down into the tunnels just out of curiosity on how this guy did that. And they came across all these vets, all these homeless people, all these criminals. And, you know, God did a special mold with Matthew. He sure did, because it gave him the compassion of God, giving back to others that only God can give. And Matt would come down there and say to people, hey, man, here's a pair of socks. Here's a pair of shoes. Here's a blanket. He'd go down on Thanksgiving and take meals down there to people. And he started exploring and started walking these tunnels, and he discovered all these people. So he decided to write a book. And the name of the book was Beneath the Neon. So it's a real dark story of the tunnels, the real dark side of the tunnels. And so he wrote this book. And when he wrote this book, it went viral big time. And so they did a lot of different things. It made national news all over the place. And so I'm living in the tunnels, and this is how God works. And a crew from 2020 comes down with Matthew. And when he came down there, I'd seen him a couple of times. I just kind of ran. I was too busy getting high. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. Sure. And he excuse me, he came down there to interview some people, and they ran this story on 2020. Now, you tell me there's no God. And my parents are sitting home, retired in Colorado. and they see me in the background of a 2020 special on him in the book. And they said, oh my goodness. Now, I weigh 143 pounds now, and at that time when I checked into rehab, I weighed 72 pounds. I was half my body weight.
Right.
And they
yeah.
came.
You're 4'11", right?
Yeah, I'm 4'11" on a good day.
Yeah.
And so they flew to Vegas, and they hired a private detective to come looking for me. And the private detective found me, and I immediately turned my headlamp off and gave him the middle finger with some verbals and ran. Because every good tunnel rat can run a good mile in pitch black in their tunnel, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And so they came back, and they came back within the next couple of days, and they shot me with something in my leg, and they threw me over their shoulder, and they carried me out.
Wow.
And they took me to my mom and dad. And my mom and dad were at a hotel room waiting. And when I walked in, my mom just grabbed me and hugged me. It was the first real hug I'd had in about a year. And I had this moment of clarity. See, she said, won't you try this one more time? You're going to die, Beth. And I said, yes. And my mom said, in typical my mom, would you like to take a shower? And I said, sure. So I got undressed, and my mom started the water spigot, and she pulled the water on, and I got in the shower, and it hit my back, and I screamed. You could have heard me a block away. I hadn't had a shower in 8.5 months. It was like splitting needles on my back. And my mom, who was crippled from that car wreck when I was 4,
Right.
fully dressed, got in the shower and bathed her 50-year-old baby. And then they took me back to the hospital and the rehab, and they wouldn't take me, and that's where I ended up spending 10 days in the medical hospital, and then I went back to rehab. And I don't know, I was completely done. I was completely defeated. I had no more answers. No more answers. And so I did 30 days there. I went to a house called We Care, which was founded by Betty McLean. Betty McLean is Don McLean, who did the song Bye Bye Miss America Pie's sister.
Okay.
And they started this right behind the Stratosphere. And I went and spent 30 days there. And then I went to Women's Sober Living for 9.5 months, and I haven't looked back. And you would think that's where my story would end, but it's only where it begins. So,
I understand. I know your story. So, share how it starts now.
Yeah, how it really starts. So my recovery looks like this. I really finally realized that I didn't have a moral defect of character. I had a disease. I had a disease that stemmed between my ears and told me I didn't have a disease. And the only solution for me not to put drugs and alcohol in me is to put something else in me, man. And I found that solution through the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is our textbook. You know, alcohol's not my first choice by any means, but it describes exactly how I behave and exactly how I think and exactly how I operate. So I start going to big meetings, and I find out 2 things. Number 1, no one laughs at me, and number 2, no one asks me why. Everyone nodded, and they totally agreed, and they totally got it.
Yeah.
See, you know, some of the things that we do as alcoholics and addicts, you know, if we start talking about some of the things going on in our head, you know, we're standing on the street corner and doing that, you know, we're going to be all alone real quick. I walk in the room, Alcoholics Anonymous, and everyone agrees. Everyone nods. Everyone gets it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I call that committee between my ears, just for a reference, my itty bitty shitty committee, because it's always in session. It's always in session. And so anyway, so I start doing the deal. I start going through the steps. I start cleaning up the wreckage of the past. I start um, getting out of the financial debt. I start trying to get my teaching certificate back, which I did do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I start doing all the work that needs to be done to be a successful human and to contribute to society instead of take. Um, and lo and behold, God surely wasn't done with me. He surely wasn't done with me. He surely saved me, and He had given me a book and a group of women and men that I can relate to. So fast forward, I'm about 8 years sober, and I'm coming up on my eighth year birthday, and I'm scared to death because I'm tired of going to meetings. I'm tired of doing this stuff. I know it's working, but I'm tired.
Sure.
And they've just made marijuana legal in the state of Nevada, and I'm like, what the hell, man? They wait till I get done, and I'm just tired, and I know I can't do that, and I just know where that'll lead, and I'm just kind of bitter, and I kind of get in a
Yeah.
funk, and so it was suggested to me to change sponsors, Beth. Man, maybe you outgrew your sponsor. Maybe you need to do that. And there'd been this lady I'd been talking to for quite a while, and she was actually a friend of mine, and we'd known each other for almost my whole sobriety. And I finally got the guts at a convention to ask her, and so that's kind of interesting story. So we're at this convention, and she goes, I'm talking to her sponsor, not her, but to her sponsor in the pool. So, Beth, have you ever got down on your knees and asked God to give you the strength to do what you need to do to keep yourself going? And I said, well, no, Chris. She's like, well, why don't you do that? So I just looked at her, and I'm bawling by this point. I get out of the pool. It's only like 150 billion degrees out, and
Right.
I go up to my hotel room, and I get on my knees, and I just, God, just give me the strength to do this. I need to do it to keep going. So I come down the elevator, go back to the pool, and I open the door, and there she is, standing right at the door. So I proceed to drag her in the elevator and close the door and ask her. She said, I've been waiting for you to ask me for quite a while. So that started my journey with her. Excuse
And
me.
that's Marcy, is that right?
No,
Was
that's
this
Lisa.
Marcy? Oh, with
Lisa.
Lisa. Okay.
Yeah. And Marcy's where the party was.
Yeah.
And so Lisa starts to sponsor me, and I don't know, she's been sponsoring me for about maybe a month, maybe not even a month. And I get this phone call from her that to go, she needs me to go speak for her at this meeting. So I go to speak at this meeting, and it's a real fancy meeting in a real fancy part of Vegas. And I walk in there in my jeans and my hoodie, which is basically attire for Beth. And I walk in there, and I start sharing my story, and lo and behold, there's somebody in that audience who knows Matt O'Brien, the author. And they get a hold of him, and he doesn't even live in this country. He lives in San Salvador. Tell me there's no God.
Yeah.
They get a hold of him, and he says, and say, hey, this chick is crediting you with saving your life, and you had no idea. And he says, no, I had no idea whatsoever. And so Matt friends me. I drop my phone. I just literally dropped my phone he comes on Facebook and friends me, and I drop my phone on the ground. I call Lisa. What do I do? What do I do? Beth, why don't you hit the word accept? So I accept his friend request, and we start talking, and he says, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book on the bright side of the tunnels, and I'm interviewing these people, and I'm asking everybody the same questions, and I'd like to interview you for that. Can we do that via Skype and stuff? And I said, absolutely. I said, I just want to hug you and thank you for saving my life. So we start talking back and forth a little bit, and he says, nah, I'm flying back to Vegas and meeting you.
Oh.
So on December 20th, 4 years ago today, I sat in my sponsor's house, and I met Matthew O'Brien for the very first time. I answered all his questions. We had this understanding if there was something I didn't want to answer, that'd be okay. And our friendship and our life has blossomed since. Um, the book came out a year ago this past November 17th. It's called Dark Days, Bright Nights. He interviewed 36 of us in that book. And when he got done interviewing me, he says, you need to go down to this place called Freedom House here in Las Vegas and ask for this guy by the name of Paul. So he says, go down and talk to him. Because I started this nonprofit before I left called Shine a Light. And I'd really like for you to become a part of it. So I go down there and I introduce myself to Paul. And lo and behold, I find out that Paul's mom and I have known each other from the tunnels and from years and years and years ago. And I start giving back. I start collecting things. And I start collecting supplies for Shine a Light. But I can't go back down underground, man. I just can't do it. I can't figure it out. And that's when I came to the realization that getting sober is a joint effort. It's a joint thing. I needed outside help. I needed more therapy. I needed more things to help me. That Alcoholics Anonymous was not just a cure-all. And it's definitely a cure-all for me getting sober. But to maintain my sobriety, I had to do something. So what I did is I got that outside help. And I got that EMDR therapy. And I did everything I could do to absolutely become the best I could become. And so what happened was, after that, I had a really good friend there, the name of Jessica, and I knew she was going underground, and this is how God works, man. He healed my heart, and then he made me feel like I could be okay, and he moved my feet. Mm-hmm. And what happened was I went back down into the tunnels for the first time after I was 10 years sober.
That's fabulous.
And I went back down, and I've been back down one other time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and you know, the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the beauty, I guess if I could say three things of advice. One of them would be, you know, I definitely know I have another drunken high in me. That is without a shadow of a doubt, I know that. But I don't think I have another recovery. And because I don't think I have another recovery, I'll just stay put.
Good for you.
I know that there's a solution. I know there's a solution. I know that no matter how far down the road that we've gone, that there is a way back. If anybody listening is suffering for alcohol or drug addiction, when you're ready, man. And when you're ready, there's a solution. I do know that I've buried a lot of people that haven't found that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're kind of like, we're time freaks, man. We want things now. We want the solution now. And we want to feel better now. But I'm going to tell you what. If you don't put in the work, you don't get the results. I knew that. Because here's the deal. I went into rehab 17 times, right? Every single time I left rehab thinking, I'm going to stay sober this time. Yeah. Every single time I went to a meeting afterwards. But every single time I was willing to do the social part. I wasn't willing to do the step work. You hear people talk about the steps. And what the steps does, how do I do it? They say that the steps keep me from committing homicide, and the traditions keep me from committing, or the steps keep me from committing suicide, and the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous keep me from committing homicide. Okay, so the steps teach me how to live with me and be comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable in my own skin the first time, and it took me until I got to till I was about 54, 55 years old to do it.
Yeah, but you got there. Some people never get there. You know, so kudos to you. That's
Well, you know, Matt has actually wrote 3 books. Between the two Beneath the Neon and Dark Days, Bright Nights. He's quite adventurous. He went and stayed at a place called the Blue Angel, which is like in the middle. It's old Las Vegas. It's a very It's not in the best part of it. It's not in the garden spot of Las Vegas. Let's just say that. And he lived there for a week and wrote a book on the hookers, the streets, and the tunnels of Las Vegas. And so that was his middle book, and it's called My Week at the Blue Angel.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
Questions for me at all?
Well, no, I mean, I've always thought you're just a force to be reckoned with in a positive way, because you've always had that energy, and that's what drew me to you as a friend, and just your craziness to just do whatever, I always just appreciated that and loved you for that. So, but I just want to say, oh my gosh, Beth, there's so many people, and you've texted me since I went for your 10th anniversary in Vegas and of your sobriety. It's probably should be your 10th birthday. I'm not sure if it's birthday anniversary here, however you say it. But since then, in that party that we had at Marsha's, all the people that you've lost, and it's like, oh my gosh, I was sitting right next to this guy. We had this great discussion, and I do believe that people leave rehab with the best intentions. That this is it, this is going to be it. And then it's not. So I don't know. I just appreciate your advice and all your wisdom.
Let me add one more thing. Now I work for a nonprofit called Tin High. Tin High stands for There Is No Hero in Heroin. And it was started by a guy by the name of Joe Engel, and he lost his son to a heroin overdose. And so he started this nonprofit, and then they got this really good idea, and he was in the formation group that opened up Mission High School. Mission High School in Las Vegas is the only publicly funded recovery high school in the nation.
That's awesome.
And it's a beautiful thing. I think the first year they graduated 2 kids. Last year they graduated 10. The part of Tin High I work for is called APG, which stands for Alternative Peer Group. And so we bring the kids back here after school every day. We have a 12-step meeting. We have a smart recovery. We have all recovery. We have AA. We have a Dirtbags, which is a name of a group that I'm a part of. It's an AA meeting, and Dirtbag stands for Drunks in Recovery Together, Beating Alcoholism with Gratitude and Spirituality. Our founding hoodies on the back of it said, I don't gamble with my chips. And so I work for that nonprofit now, and we do all sorts of things with the kids. I took them on a cave outing not too long ago, hiking in a cave at night. That was a lot of fun. We had an electrician come in and teach them how to wire a lamp. We called it Wired Up. We have a book club that we call Strip Club. That stands for Seeking Truth and Recovery in Print. And we do activities every day with them. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm really involved in the solution. There is recovery. And don't be defeated if you don't get it the first time. I sure didn't.
Yeah. So what message would you give your parents, your mom?
What message would I give my parents? Thank you for never giving up. And as you look down on me in heaven, I know that you're looking down and you're seeing me smile with my heart. Not just my face, with my heart.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're seeing my feet do things that make a difference in not only my life, but in everybody's life. On Christmas Eve, which is 4 days from now, that will be the anniversary of my parents passing. When my mom passed, the message went like this. I was there. So when my mom, holding her hand, said, Mom, I'm almost 3 years sober at this point. In the first year, you had your daughter back, but you didn't trust her. Your second year, you trusted her, and we had so much fun, Mom. And now that I'm just a month shy of turning 3, it's okay to go be with God. And my mom passed away within a few hours of that conversation.
Wow.
The conversation a few years later, she died in 2012. So 2017, Christmas Eve, the conversation went like this. Hey, Daddy, I'm so sorry I can't make it. I'm so sorry I can't get to Vegas or to Colorado. I just can't make it. I can't get there. It's okay for you to go be with God. But guess what, Daddy? 4 days ago, I met, as you called him, the Tunnel Man. And it was magical and miraculous. And Daddy, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And my dad died within 30 seconds of that conversation.
Wow. He was probably hanging on to hear from you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful, Beth. And you are okay. You've got a job, a car, a nice apartment,
Right. Here's another thing, when people ask me what I'm grateful for today, and the people say that all the time. What are you grateful for? And people come up with all sorts of things. Here's my top 3 things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for an indoor bedroom. I'm grateful for plumbing. And I'm grateful for air conditioning.
Yeah.
Those are my top 3 things, man.
Yeah. That's
you know what
great.
it's like until you lose all those.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much today, Beth, for being my guest. I know people are going to reap a lot from this and just be inspired. And I hope everybody checks into Matt's books, as well, because they are such books of hope. Not just your life, but many, many others, and what a ministry he's had.
Yeah.
So
he used our street names in the book. So I'm Half Pine in the book.
Okay.
My friend Paul, who's running the Shine a Light since Matt's moved to San Salvador, he's Shaggy in the book, and then his mom is One Shoe Sue, and she got that nickname because she came out of that tunnel with one shoe on and cuffs. So yeah.
Wow.
Thank you so
much. Yeah, thanks, Beth. Thank you so much for joining me today on Crucible. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button and share with your friends. I'm Mary Lee Aidenhand, and I'll see you next week.